today we're actually gonna make the turbo whistle a little bit louder. So you guys are wondering, are we doing compounds? Are we adding another turbo? Full HSP kit? Stay tuned to find out. Here's my 2011 LML Duramax. And then here's my 2020 L5P Duramax. And a lot of people assume that I have the same piping kit on this truck as well as like this truck. And I would say it's a fair assessment just because of every Duramax that I've pretty much documented on this channel has had some sort of piping kit. So the LOI had the full HSP piping kit. That LML has a full HSP piping kit. My first LML had SDP piping kit. So yeah, it's a fair point that people assume that I would do the same thing on this truck, especially since I have a 64mm turbo. Well, to tell you guys the truth, everything is actually stock, pretty much stock intake. Only piping I've done is the L5P piping here that deletes the resonator. That's the only thing I've done. And mainly because I got this for like technically free. Some guy needed some rock lights installed. I'll give you some rock lights. And he was like, I'll give you this pipe right here if you want to do a trade. That's how I got this. I really haven't felt like doing a whole piping kit on this truck for some reason. Mainly because for the longest time it sat up so high that nobody was ever going to see the piping if I was going to show it off. But now that it's lowered, I might change my mind. I may eventually do compounds on this truck just to make it kind of cool. And now that it's become essentially like my daily driver, I want to do some stuff to it. And then we need a 10mm. Might need an extension though. Yeah, I'm gonna need an extension. 10mm. I'm gonna use a stool because I am vertically challenged. Whoop. At least it fell on the ground. Okay. Do you want to see the intake filter? Because I don't remember the last time I replaced the filter, which is terrible. It's not too bad. It's a little dirty, but I wouldn't say it's absolutely disgusting. But yeah, don't need that. Don't need this. We still do need this piece because I need to remove the sensor right here. Okay, removed. Okay, so this is what we're doing today. SMB air filter, there's a warning message right here. Failure to disable the air filter life system per install instructions will cause warning light that can only be reset by GM dealer. That's true. However, if you have an MPVI 2 or 3 that you use to flash tunes onto your L5P, you can go into the VCM scanner and disable it. So it's not a deal breaker if you don't follow the instructions here, but for the most part, you should always follow the instructions. So yeah, we're doing the SMB intake. I have never seen this before. That's interesting. Okay. Maybe I need to scan the instructions QR code. And maybe it'll tell us what that harness is. Step 10, adjust the position of the air inlet. Okay. Well, it doesn't really tell us what that harness is. So you guys are probably wondering why I went with SMB instead of HSP or L5P. Because, you know, I do that kind of stuff over there on the LML fancy piping kit, but honestly for this truck I just want to make it kind of, like I said, like practical. And I've installed tons of SMB intake, and I just like the way it fits and I like the way it looks. I can see the filter, see how dirty it's getting without having to remove the cover, which is a huge plus for me. And I don't know, it sounds weird, but I didn't want to get too fancy with this L5P in terms of like performance stuff, at least not yet. Whenever, I mean, if I get fancy with it, it'll be when I do the compound turbo setup. But yeah, as of right now, I'm just gonna keep it humbling for now. And this wasn't like a sponsored video or anything like that. I do, you know, tons of sponsor videos, partnerships with other companies, but this one, I bought it myself just because I like the intake. I've always had SMB intake before I got fancy with the piping kit. I had SMB on my LOI. I had SMB on my LML in the beginning, my first LML. All right, we're gonna take the new sensor, or not the new sensor, but the old sensor, and then put it in the SMB intake like this. And then they're gonna supply you with new screws. Okay, so you're gonna wanna take the grommet, the rubber grommet from the factory intake box, and insert it right here, which I'll show you guys here in a second. Okay, the grommet is gonna go right in there. Move this out the way. And move some of the wiring that I have out the way. I have some train horn wires and whatnot. Just make sure everything is lined up. Make sure the lines are getting in the way and getting kinked. Let's make sure we don't lose this. And everything about installing an intake, nothing's hard. It's just a pain in the butt. Okay, they give you 2 new clamps. So that's it. In my unprofessional professional opinion, I think it makes a huge difference in terms of the sound. Granted, compared to, let's say, like the HSP / Orly Fab one, it won't be as loud. Those are very noticeable. It almost sounds like, it sounds weird because you just hear a lot of the air sucking in from your engine bay when you're driving, and not everyone likes that. At first, it was kind of weird for me too. Makes you a little paranoid to see, because you're like, do I have a boost leak? Is something leaking? Because that's what it kind of sounds like. But SMB is not as noticeable in terms of that. But right now, what I'm doing, lastly, I really shouldn't be getting the error message about the intake filter because I disabled it a while back. If I needed to disable it, I can do it with my MPVI HP Tuners VCM scanner. I need to do a revision. I already got the engine revision for the tire size. As you guys know, I went from 38s to 35s. I already got my engine revision for that, and I need to now do my TCM revision. I reached out to PPI asking if I should get a revision because I felt like my shift points were kind of high and my fuel mileage, frankly, was worse with 35s than 38s. So I reached out and they were like, yep, if you feel like the shift points are a little too high, we can adjust it. And here's your revision. So PPI sent me a revision for my 35s. So it should shift a lot quicker and it shouldn't drag it out any longer anymore. All right, so TCM flashed complete. So here is my truck with the cold air intake, SMB cold air intake. I had the windows closed for now. I did have to get a revision from my tuner. For some reason, I mean, with the 64mm 9-blade and adding the cold air intake, it was a little bit more laggy. So I asked for adjustment. So hopefully it's a little bit better. So here is the SMB intake, 64mm Ryan's diesel service with 9-blade, just cruising around the neighborhood with the windows down. Well, at least just the passenger side. And one of the questions I get a lot is how loud it is inside the cab. And to be honest with you guys, I've always had, you know, 64mm turbos with the 10-blade. I have the 9-blade on the LML. And personally, these 2020s, it's insulated very well. So when you have all the windows closed, I personally don't really hear that turbo. You can hear the high pitch whistle sound, but personally, it's not that bad. A lot of it is subjective. Some people say they get sick of it. I'm fine. My wife is fine. Most of the people who ride in my truck, they're fine. Even when we take this truck on like longer road trips. So, like I said, very subjective. Some people get annoyed, some people don't. First things first, truck runs way better with the revision. And secondly, the turbo is slightly louder. One thing I do notice is the higher pitch whistle that you hear coming from the intake, and it kind of transfers all the way out the tailpipe. So I wouldn't say the turbo is much louder, but it has more of a higher pitch, more faint whistle to it. I know Sal installed the 64 9-blade, same turbo on his L5P Duramax, that massive show truck one, but he's got the whole Whirly Fab piping kit with Whirly Fab intake. And granted, if I did the Whirly Fab or HSP intake, it would have been louder, but personally, because I'm not going that route of doing the whole piping kit, I kind of prefer the SMB. And I've always liked the SMB just because of the clear cover, and you can see whenever the filter gets dirty. Yeah, that truck is definitely louder than my truck. overall turbo whistle, just everything. If you want the loudest of the loud, go with the full piping kit and then do the turbo. But if you just want it to be loud and not too over the top loud, I mean, this is still going to be pretty loud. Just keep the stock piping and do the SMB cold air intake, because to me that's just enough. And I do feel like the turbo spools up better, and yeah, it complements it very well. I think it's kind of been a long overdue for me to upgrade the intake. I've had the 64mm turbo for a while and kept the stock air filter, or kept the stock intake. Yeah, truck spools up way better. On the low end, I have better throttle response now with the cold air intake and proper tuning. But yeah, I highly recommend it. If you guys want to purchase the SMB intake, I will add that on my website. And if you guys need any performance parts, any Duramax merchandise and gear, head over to JW Motorsports Co. and I'll be happy to assist you guys on my website.